Hey there, athletes. Coach John Ferry here from Team Wilpers. Very excited to welcome you to our Week 4 athlete briefing of our Holiday Run Challenge 2023. So per usual, we're going to start with our Week 3 review. So we started this week with our VO2 Max workout, where we were building power and efficiency, hopefully in that running stride. We're also continuing to push the pace, move a little bit faster, work VO2 max or our lactate buffering energy zone there, used especially in a 5K style of racing. For our longer endurance athletes out there, or long distance runners, we still need this VO2 max style work to raise that threshold so that we have room then to push the aerobic and the lactate threshold along with it. So that VO2 max work, especially in our off season for a lot of people, critical both for the short distance racers and the long distance. So we have it here as our key workout number 1. Key workout number 2 of the week here was our threshold work, where we're continuing to practice that time spent being comfortably uncomfortable. Really that endurance race pace, the practice of the workout itself, not only the energy zone, allows you to hopefully hold those tougher paces a little bit longer across many energy zones. And then finally, to finish out our week, our easy run, the best way to finish out every week. A little bit of housekeeping. We're now already approaching, in these short 6-week challenges, our halfway mark as we come into the top of next week or the end of this week. Certainly is where motivation starts to really wane. We see people falling off that 100%. So at this week, as of every week, I want you to get into that website, can keep checking the boxes, chasing that 100% completion percentage. It's baked into the fabric of this challenge in particular, 100% all the way from Thanksgiving to New Year's. So keep after it, or as close as possible. To our week 4 workouts now. So here's the deal on week 4. So we don't really need to break down any of the workouts in particular, right? So let's talk about more of the style of the week and what we're doing. So in training, we're looking for specific adaptations based upon a specific load that we give to an athlete. So part of that process is the loading, which is the hard training that you've been doing for 3 weeks. And part of that is the unloading, which is what we're hoping to do here in week 4. So in the unloading period, you're going to reduce volume and you're going to reduce intensity. This allows your body a chance to recover from the previous 3 weeks, continue training aerobically, and hopefully, and maybe most importantly, sets the stage for the weeks to follow. It doesn't go up, 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 and up. It just doesn't work like that. You have to take these step backs to allow yourself to be able to step further forward. I've said before, and I'll say again, when I have athletes really nailing their training, when everything's going great, they are super appreciative of these weeks. They're excited for them. They see the benefit. They know it's coming because they've been diligent about all the hard work leading up to it. And hopefully that's how you feel too. It's ready and excited to kind of step back a little bit, relax. It doesn't take the mental pressure of nailing those specific interval workouts. For the type A's out there, this sometimes is hard, but you got to relax a little bit, ease the pace, and enjoy this week to come here. Take this unload seriously. It's not a week to go hard somewhere else. It's not a time to say, like, I've got much more energy because I'm not running as hard, so I'm now going to really crush it in the gym and pound on strength training. That negates the point. This is an opportunity, as discussed, to step back, regroup, and once again, most importantly, get ready to finish the challenge strong. That's the key. So we're going to jump straight into questions that came up for the group, because there were a lot of great ones this week, as there are most weeks, but this week for sure. So question 1 here. Question about the ideal training for a rest day. I'm currently doing the intermediate half marathon plan. I'm running 5 days a week. That leaves 2 days. Sometimes I power walk or jog, hop on the bike, or do some strength. I really want to make myself take one true rest day, but when is optimal? As the runs get longer perhaps, or the day before, or maybe the day after to recover, etc. So great question of when do we want rest days in our calendar. And we'll start off by saying that one true rest day is very valuable. It doesn't always have to necessarily be on a 7-day cycle. Certain pro athletes, college athletes, a lot of times work on 10-day cycles, 14-day cycles. The reason we work on 7-day cycles for most of us is that is the easiest with the constraints of the rest of our life. College students have no constraints of their life. They're just people that bop around the world, especially college athletes. 14-day cycle is fine. A 10-day cycle. Pro athletes live to do this. They can do different cycles. Most of us keep things track in a 7-day cycle. So I would recommend that 1 day off in 7. However, it doesn't have to be 7 days. Just keep in mind. Power walking, jogging, cycling, strength training, etc. Those are all too much for that true off day. We want none of those things. Really don't want anything that's going to push that heart rate even to aerobic, much less above aerobic. So it means all zone 1, which really just means walking, living your life. You don't have to stay motionless throughout your day. As a matter of fact, it's ideal. If you feel like spending time stretching, foam rolling, etc., not to be confused with yoga, Pilates, bar, etc., different thing, that's back to strength training. Those are halfway decent off-day activities. I will usually kind of set the stage for my private clients of saying anything much more strenuous than a leisurely walk with the dog is too much. That's what I want for off days activities. Determining where to place it, however, a little bit different scenario. So there's going to be different athlete to athlete, and it's even going to be different maybe per athlete based upon the event or time of year and type of training that you're doing. So 2 immediate ways to look at this, which is based on your training history of how your body responds after certain stimulus. And then I gotta be honest, probably more often than not, athletes I'm working with one-on-one, it's based upon their schedule and what day is the best with everything else that they have in the rest of their week. So things to consider, and we'll start with the longest training run in particular. How do you feel after that longest training run, the long run? Do you tend to get up the next day feeling like fresh and springy again, which would be great? Do you, are you carrying a little bit of residual fatigue after that longest run? Or do you feel completely dead as a doorknob? Which, if that's the answer, we got some other problems for another question another time. However, they would be very, very common for many of us to be like carrying some fatigue off of that long run. In which case it might make a lot of sense to take that next day off to kind of have a true recovery. I also have a lot of athletes that want to do a Saturday long run and kind of cherish that Sunday morning that they get to sleep in and not worried about working out, not worrying about get to work, etc., especially on our traditional like Monday to Friday work week athletes out there. So personal preference. That being said, you kind of asked about also a great idea sometimes to use it in advance of the long run. I have a lot of Friday day offs for athletes out there. Really, the idea is they're not only working and training hard during the early part of the week, they've got personal obligations, work obligations. They're waking up early to try to get workouts done in advance of a work day. So that Friday off to try to get a little bit of a rest, both physically, mentally, etc., before waking up again early Saturday morning to get that big session in, that works for a lot of people. So it absolutely, especially, you have to, I kind of use the first thing to say, assess how you feel after those long runs usually. How do you feel during the long run? Do you go into that long run feeling fresh? If so, great, you probably don't need to change anything. However, do you go into that long run carrying the residual fatigue for the week? And if so, it might be worth a shift. And before anyone says anything, yes, there is training ideology about running those long runs on tired legs, but I don't love it. Unless you're between the ages of about 20 and 25, I don't like putting people out there in an intentionally fatigued state. I want to set my athletes up to be the most successful that they can be in an individual session, and I don't think it does that. So I understand the stimulus, I understand the rationale, but 99 times out of 100, I want my athlete out there to be fresh and ready to tackle that workout, set them up for success. So taking that day off in advance of the long run might make the most sense. And then finally, we talked about, and I think you brought up, could you put it midweek to set yourself up to be more successful on some of those key workouts? And the answer is, once again, yeah, absolutely. Especially if you're, say, in a 3 quality week where you're doing 2 structured workouts and a long run, which is kind of what we do in the challenges here, right? Those, midweek workouts are tough. They're challenging. They're really designed to push you, and you're going to carry that for a little bit. Especially in some of these, the VO2 max work and extended threshold work, that lactic acid that builds up in the muscles, you can carry it for 24 to 72 hours. So it's not unreasonable that you might just not, feel the fatigue into workout 2 from workout 1, in which case having that full day off there might really help get much more out of workout 2, especially if you can't really kind of recover during an easy run or easy exercise in the middle, which I think hits a lot of people. You're not really recovering during the recovery activities. It's just a slight other stressor. So all of those things are great ideas. You just have to kind of toy with your schedule and figure out what works best from you or for you. Maybe the best piece of advice I hopefully can give on this is the consistency factor of it, which is that we are creatures that thrive on consistency. Whether you feel like it or not, I've seen it in a lot of athletes. It remains to be true over and over again. The people are the most consistent in terms of these are the key days, these are the days off, this is the day I do the long run. I see them have the most success and best results over the course of many, many years of doing it. Our bodies learn the rhythm, they know what to expect, and when we give them exactly what they expect, they're in a position to really thrive and benefit and see those gains faster than those that don't. Not to mention the timing of the workout itself. So I would say try as best as possible to find that ideal week. Really get it into your rhythm. Honor the full day off in there for sure. And hopefully that sets the stage for some more heavy training to follow. Our next question here. So new to me, it's a blister on the inside edge of my pinky toe. No new shoes or socks. Can anyone think of something I'm missing to prevent this from happening? So blisters, huge deal in running, right? Blister in general, the creation is a combination of moisture and frictions. So a running shoe, a perfect habitat to develop blisters. So a few ways to go about it. First way, I don't love this way, but if you're running long enough, and especially if it's a newer thing and it's not bad enough, you can push through, those things do eventually turn into calluses, get a little bit tougher, maybe not the most beautiful beach feet, but make for really good running, So if you can kind of push through it a little bit, if it hasn't like reached a pain point that's prohibitive, that's one. Like I said, not a lot of fun in the meantime, wouldn't necessarily be my go-to solution. So solution 2, blister develops, you can certainly wrap it, tape it, use pads, basically another implement to kind of isolate that area. And in particular, you're gonna have to do this if it's an open wound really, because you can't, and we'll talk about something else in a second, you have to keep it covered, clean, and safe, because the last thing you want is any sort of infection, etc., to come in during the scope of the run. The little warning I'm gonna give with the, adding something is that even a piece of tape creates a seam, an additional friction point in your shoe. So whether it's on or starts to come undone, or it's a piece of foam that gets put in there, it's now rubbing a little bit differently than just your natural feet that you've been walking around for years and years and years with. So it can create its own problem unto itself, unfortunately, if you're not careful. Once again, if it's an open wound, this is a risk you kind of have to take. So be very careful, very kind of methodical about how you apply whatever you're applying to try as best as possible to keep those seams and kind of rough ridges from creating another problem. Then one of my favorite solutions, if there's not an open wound there on the foot, is to use kind of an anti-friction cream or balm. So Body Glide is one that's a favorite of mine. It can be used all over the body for the most part, but also great on feet. So just applying a little bit of an anti-friction balm pre-run before putting your sock on, etc. Once again, as long as the skin is healed and in good shape, can really help without adding an additional item into your shoe that can create a problem down the road. So a couple things to look at. Overall, blisters are a big deal. So I have athletes and these things pop up. It does happen from time to time, even for people who've been running a long time, the same shoe, etc. It does happen, but deal with it pretty aggressively. Try to figure out a solution, get on the other side of it, because you do not want it to stick around and kind of is a unwanted visitor, if you will. So try to get it figured out sooner rather than later. So our next question here was, I'm in week 10 of the 5K plan, loving the progress I've seen, but this week I get hit with the crud that's going around right now. I've already missed the workout, and I don't know if I'm gonna have a long run in me. I know it's better to rest, but what do I do next? Repeat the week, go straight to the week 10, etc. So we're going to jump ahead to the end of this question here. And so first of all, I skipped the kind of the punchline at the end. Don't bail on the training plan, which you alluded to in the question. Things are going to be okay despite the fact of missing a week here. So certainly cold and flu season, this is going around, always comes up, throughout the year. What do you do when you start kind of miss training for unwanted, unexpected, type of things? Once again, number one, don't bail on the training plan just because you missed a week. You'll be back. It'll be okay. Second, depends on a couple things. Are you training towards a specific event? So usually we see people in a 5K, half marathon, etc. The answer is yes, but maybe not. If you're just training for the sake of training, then no problem. Take a week or two easy. When you feel up to it again, come back in. But for sake of conversation here, we're going to assume that you're training towards a specific event. So in week 11, you're coming to the final third of your training. Just FYI, on this training plan, week 12 is a training plan. So it doesn't matter what the training is, where you are and what's going on and what the upcoming week is. When you're coming back from an illness in particular, your body's been under stress outside of working out, you have to come back in easy pace. It's not going to do you any favors to try to come back in and do key hard workouts. Doesn't matter if you're 3 weeks out from your key race or 2 weeks or 4 weeks, whatever. Come back in, take it easy on yourself, spend a week running easy. Training plans, much like these training challenges, they tend to have these adjustment weeks and drop down weeks. And you don't necessarily need to barrel through those weeks and try to make up training. That would be another bad idea, but it allows you to kind of ease up to that point and then kind of reassess where you are. And when you're coming in, we'll only have a few weeks left in that training plan, it might be worth doing kind of a half week or pushing through a little bit harder than that week since you've kind of had some time off here right now. I'm going to kind of create a little 5-step plan of how I like any athlete to come back from, this would be mostly illness, but injury or illness, unwanted time off here, which is step one, probably the most important, is that actually recover. There's no working out when you're sick. There's no working out when you're injured. It's not good for anybody. Actually recover, get healthy, step one. Step two is return under peak volume, all easy pace. So I'm not going to jump straight back into my peak volume, even if I drop the intensity off. Step three, return to peak volume. Once again, all at easy pace, coming back up, getting to that volume that I dropped off before. Step four, return to some intensity at peak volume, not all the way maybe to peak intensity. And then step five is actually to advance intensity, resume that training progression. So once again, you're coming to the final third of your training block. However, you don't have necessarily that 4-week progression to come back in. Definitely spend a week coming back in at easy pace running. It would be okay to maybe put some strides in there, not much more than that. The goal really of that kind of bounce back week should just be to maintain, kind of regain routine, regain the amount of sessions you have over the course of the week, and hopefully the best possible outcome of that week is that by the end of the week, you're 100% feeling back in your body and ready to take on a little bit more strain in the following week, but just be super gentle. A lot of times we push ourselves too hard, too fast. Doesn't turn out great a lot of the times, so just come back in nice and easy. Next question here is, I'm incorporating this challenge into my half marathon training plan. Excellent. Do power and hot yoga on Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, and I'm running 3 times a week on Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday. I want to add 1 to 2 days of either rowing or power zone endurance rides, any recommendation on how to structure it, duration, intensity of the row ride, etc. So not entirely, but this is provides a great opportunity. This tends to come up at least once per challenge to talk about multi-modality or multi-sport training here. And no matter how many sports you're doing, really the principle of the training week remains the same, that there are 3 key workouts I want fit into a training week. If you are doing 13 sports, I still only want 3 key workouts in the week. Not 3 key workouts for each sport, 3 key workouts. Everything else becomes supplemental. So if you cycle 5 times a week and you run 5 times a week, there are going to be 3 activities that are key. And it depends on your priorities of where you want to see the most gain, what you do and how you adjust there. On an individual multi-sport training day, I would always do the key workout first. And the key workout would be that structured workout, the most intense. You certainly don't want to do another workout and then save that for the second workout of the day. In which case, that second workout, assuming you've done the key first, would most likely be later in the day, 4 hours or more later, and supplementary. Zone 1, Zone 2, very low key, aerobic training time. That is your supplemental activity, because especially in a week that starts to get kind of crowded like this, where it was 3 yoga sessions, 3 runs, starting to add stuff. You're getting to 7, 8 sessions across the scope of the week. You're going to have these double days, which means you have to come back and do something else again in the morning. If you're running 3 times a week, so following the challenge structure, your training stimulus in terms of the structured workout is maxed already. You have 2 key workouts in a long run, that's max. So I wouldn't really add intensity on any modality, rowing, cycling, skiing, whatever it is. Maybe, like endurance, Zone 2 work, Zone 1, just to pick a bone. Power Zone Endurance is not an endurance workout. That is a tempo workout with a lot of Zone 3. Zone 2 workout is what we refer to as endurance workout. So Zone 2 and below are those supplemental modalities there that you would add on as supplemental or second workouts. However, there are plenty of people, and it's very reasonable despite my strong objections, that don't want to put all their priority on the running workouts. So if you want it to be really cross multiple modalities in terms of the training stimulus, it's pretty easy. Instead of having 3 runs a week, 2 structured and a long run, you'd probably take that second structured run, drop it off in favor of an easy run, and put your training intensity into a different sport at that point. So for sake of this conversation, we'll say it's cycling. That way your 3 key workouts across the week now are your first structured run, your first structured cycle, and your long run of the week. And because you can really add, especially if you're training, let's say the triathletes in the world do this all the time, you've kind of got that long run in combination with a long bike, because it's very low intensity, especially on those long bikes on the weekend. A lot of Zone 1 with maybe a little bit of Zone 2 or extended kind of low Zone 2 time over those long rides. Once again, very low in the energy zone spectrum. So just to sum this back up, once again, no matter how many sports you want in your training week, you want 3 key workouts. Always want to pick your key workout of the day, of your training day, to be your first workout and most important workout. If the second one falls into place, then great. Wants to be at a low training intensity, a Zone 1, a Zone 2, something very low key. It's just supplemental time and supplemental training time. Word of warning before we kind of leave this topic, more is not always better. Very easy to overwhelm one's schedule, overwhelm one's body very quickly, especially when we start talking about the 2-a-days in terms of morning and night. Our bodies do have a 24-hour recovery arc that we've seen through kind of a super compensation curve. So when you interject more strain on top of existing strain, it can be disruptive to that schedule. Yes, there are professional athletes and professional runners that do 2-3 sessions a day. To say the least, they're in a little bit different bracket than 99.99% of us. They're, so they're able to do things a little bit differently. So just be very careful. I would add an individual session at a time. It would always be added at the easiest of intensity, and try to step up very, very slowly over the course of time. Because we want everyone happy, healthy, and most importantly, running. I mean, am I right? That's where we'll end it actually for this week. Thanks so much for being here. Have an amazing week 4. Thanks for being here on a Friday night. We'll see you again hopefully next week. Have a great one.